This week, 2024 campaign trail was on the road as former President Trump met with voters at a bodega in New York City, with President Biden as he met with voters in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Also, a look at the failed efforts to change how Nebraska's electoral votes are counted. But first, a look at the latest poll numbers and ads from the GOP and Democratic presumptive presidential nominees. The latest from YouGov and The Economist had President Biden and former President Trump tied nationally, with independent Robert F. Kennedy Jr. getting 3% support. An Echelon Insights poll released earlier in the week had President Biden up just 1% over former President Trump, still a statistical tie. Better news for the independent Kennedy in that poll, though, with 11% support. The most recent national poll released this week from Emerson College showed former President Trump with a slightly higher edge, up 44% to President Biden's 40%, with Kennedy at 8%. Next, two of the latest ads from the Biden and Trump camps, which focused on campaign stops the two candidates made earlier in the week in New York City and Pennsylvania. Then some of the highlights from the candidates' interactions with voters.
Scranton is a set of values. We pride ourselves on the importance of family and honesty and hard work.
Joe loves Scranton because this was the beginning. President Biden is my first cousin, and there's almost like a part of him still here in Scranton.
We're all middle-class people, hard-working people, and he was part of it. And I'm a longtime friend of President Joe Biden. We go way back before we were in grade school. He never forgot where he came from.
Scranton really, I think, is the case study for what President Biden has done since he's taken office. 4 years ago, we were distressed. We're out of financial distress as a city. People are working. People are, I think, happier because they can find a job. We have construction all over the city.
I have seen an increased number of new businesses open since the pandemic.
I feel like for the first time in a long time, we have a president who understands normal middle-class people like me.
I do not believe that President Trump was for the little guy. He was for the wealthy. That was his lifestyle, and that's what he protected.
Trump is for Trump.
President Biden is setting us up for not just tomorrow, but for 50 years from now. We are so optimistic for the future of Scranton and continuing the work going ahead the next 4 years.
Violent ex-con attacking a hard-working store clerk here in New York City. The clerk fought back and stabbed his attacker to death. Radical DA Alvin Bragg slapping him with a murder charge.
Going to a bodega.
Crowds gather in Upper Manhattan as former President Trump visits a bodega.
This is the moment Mr. Trump arrived tonight. People lined up along 139th at Broadway as he made his way inside the Hamilton Heights bodega to meet with Jose Alba. Alba is the bodega worker who fatally stabbed a man in July of 2022 in a case of self-defense.
On Tuesday, he used a Harlem bodega as a backdrop to slam Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg for being what he calls soft on crimes that matter.
Without a doubt, very much supported here in Harlem.
Good, everything good? trial is moving along. We have a judge who's absolutely out of place. He should not be allowed to do it. He's conflicted like nobody's ever been conflicted. This is a very exciting time for me because the bodegas the association invited me, and I respect them and they respect me. They want law and order. They have a lot of crime, tremendous crime, where their stores are being robbed. And as you know, we're going to give New York a very good shot for the presidency. We think we should be able to do it. A lot of things have changed. Lee Zeldin did a beautiful job. He ran, he lost by a little bit. And New York's a lot different. And we'll work with the mayor, and we'll work with the governor, and we'll bring in a lot of federal money, but we have to straighten out New York, and that includes crime. And these guys have great people, great friends, but they have tremendous crime, so we're going to straighten it out.
Now, it's a deal that 50%, that more than 50% of people actually believe, or a majority believe, that the judge and the jury are going to have some kind of bias against you.
Yeah, no, they believe. I heard 78% think it's a rigged deal. And it is a rigged deal. It's a rigged trial. Our courts, everything is screwed up in New York, and the whole world is watching. This judge is so conflicted. You understand that. You'll take a look at that. There's never been a judge so conflicted as this. It's ridiculous. And also, there's no crime. You know where the crime is? In the bodegas, where they come and rob them every week, or more than that.
Do you think the juror, in your mind, is an ideal juror?
Anybody that's fair.
Do you believe that the juror seated
I'll let you know after the trial, depending on that.
What
Because don't forget, we're appealing. There shouldn't be a judge. If you look, and you take a look around, a good strong look, every legal scholar, every legal pundit said there should be no trial. There was nothing done wrong. This is all politics. This is coming out of the White House. And, it makes me campaign locally, and that's okay. That's well, I don't think so. There we go. You know what? I don't think so. I think we're doing better, Brian. We're doing better now than we've ever done. So I think it's having a reverse effect. You know what? All I want is fairness. And these people have to be treated better. The Bodega Association, bodegas, because every week they're being robbed 2-3 times. It's crazy. It's crazy. And you know what? The police can do it. They can stop it. But they have to be allowed to do their job. So what is
to address the inner cities of America and give them hope, to restore the American dream? Atlanta, New York, Philly, Chicago, D.C.
We're going to come in, and number one, you have to stop crime, and we're going to let the police do their job. They have to be given back their authority. They have to be able to do their job. And we're going to come into New York. We're making a big play for New York. Other cities too, but this city, I love this city, and it's gone so bad in the last 3 years, 4 years, and we're going to straighten New York out. So running for president, we're putting a big hit on New York. We think we can win New York. With 500,000 migrants that poured in and take over the parks, they took over your hotels, they take over everything. It's no good. And you know what they've done? They've destroyed so many people. The African-American community now is not getting jobs. Migrants are taking their jobs that are here illegally. Hispanics are not getting jobs. Migrants are taking the jobs. If you look at the unemployment is good for migrants now. It went up 10%, all migrants. And they're in our country. Now, they're coming from prisons. I don't know if you know. They come from mental institutions. They come from prisons. They come from places you don't want to know about. They're coming from jails and prisons, mental institutions, and insane asylums. And you have massive numbers of terrorists coming into our country, all because of Biden. And by the way, this trial that I have now, that's a Biden trial. They want to keep me off the campaign trail. But based on what I'm doing, I think there's more press here than there is if I went out to some nice location.
How would you make the bodegas safer?
I like the police have to be able to do their job. The police in New York are great. They have to be able to do their job. They have to protect these people. Because I just met, look at this young man. And he's got a son who looks like he's a movie star. He's much better looking than the father, and the father looks good. And you know what? He says he's robbed all the time. I said, how you doing? He said, well, we're robbed all the time. Look, beautiful place. He's robbed all the time. Nobody's ever seen it. It's Alvin Bragg's fault. Yeah. Alvin Bragg does nothing. He goes after guys like Trump, who did nothing wrong. Violent criminals, murderers. They know there are hundreds of murderers all over the city. They know who they are. They don't pick them up. They go after Trump.
Say
it, what?
Mr. President, how do you feel about the 7 jurors that were selected today?
I'll let you know in about 2 months.
Mr. Trump, would you push an immigration reform for those good immigrants who doesn't have papers right now, but they
What
have
you
been
have to
working
do,
hard?
look, right now is we have to get the criminals, because many of the people coming into our country are criminals and mental patients. We have to get them out. They're going to bring them back. We're going to have the largest deportation in the history of our country. And you know who needs that? New York. And again, remember, African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, they're all losing. Unions are losing.
What about those good ones who are here?
We're going to be talking. We're going to be talking.
What is he doing here? Because he doesn't like the community, the Latino community, the Latino immigrants.
Me?
What would you say to
Oh, I love them, and they love me. Did you see my numbers? My numbers are the highest numbers in the history of the Republican Party with the Latinos, with the...
immigrants?
Did you know that? Yeah. And frankly, the immigrants, the illegal immigrants, we're going to have to do something because no country can sustain it. Remember, they're emptying out their prisons and they're emptying out their mental institutions into our country. These are prisoners and people from mental institutions, largely, that are coming in.
You're in Harlem, you're in a different neighborhood, a lot of people make
I think we're going to connect. I think we're connecting already. I mean, I was invited here by the Bodega Association, and you know they're being treated very badly. Between they're getting robbed 2-3 times a week. The stores. I think we're doing very well.
Migrant issues, we talk about the border all the time. When you come to these neighborhoods, do you think people see what the border
Oh, they see it. They see it. Look, the migrants have taken over New York. You have 500,000 illegal migrants in New York. The people of New York are not going to take it. That's why they're going to vote for Trump. Thank you. Thank you.
Keep your jobs, keep your jobs. What do you think of the jurors? What did you think of the jurors that you saw today? The jurors.
Oh, I don't know. It's a little bit early to see. We'll see what happens. But the judge is totally conflicted. He should recuse himself. He is so conflicted. There's never been anybody conflicted like this guy. And you know what? All of that stuff is on appeal right now. It's all on appeal. And if the laws are right, the whole world is watching this New York legal system. This is all election interference at the highest level. It all comes out of Washington because they're losing badly. You know they're losing very badly. You do know that. They're losing badly in the polls. And I think you're going to see some numbers coming out now even higher. People don't like the persecution. They don't like what's going on. They don't like these fake prosecutors, deranged Jack Smith, the whole group of them. And I think you're going to see some big changes being made. You know what we're going to be doing, right? We're going to be saving America. Our country is under siege. And take a look at Israel. Israel, all of a sudden, it doesn't feel protected. It has Biden. He doesn't know where he is. It's a real mess. Well, we'll see what happens with that. I think he's a very good person.
Did he brief you on his plan to do 4 separate warnings?
Good luck. Good luck. Good job you're doing. Good. Thank you. Very nice.
How should Israel respond to Iran?
They come in with guns, and he's not allowed to have a gun, okay? That's not good. Not the father of this movie star. He's going to be a movie star, you know that. He's going to forget about bodegas. You're going to do the movie star. We'll send him to Hollywood. Goodbye, everybody.
What's your plan for the rest of the days in New York? Mr. President, do you have to stay in Florida?
rallies all over the place. And we've never had higher numbers than we have right now. Highest numbers we've ever had, as you know, because you report them. Have a good time, everybody.
Mr. President, how should Israel respond to God?
I learned that no one's looking for a handout. All anybody wants is a fair shot at making, and they deserve a fair shot. My dad had a saying. He said, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. You know, people like Donald Trump learned very different lessons. He learned the best way to get rich is inherited. Not a bad way. He learned that paying taxes was something people who work for a living did, not him. He learned that telling people you're fired was something to laugh about. I guess that's how you look at the world when you're in Park Avenue or Mar-a-Lago. When I look at the economy, I don't see it through the eyes of Mar-a-Lago. I see it through the eyes of Scranton, and that's not hyperbole. That's a fact. Where honesty and decency matter. Scranton values or Mar-a-Lago values. These are the competing visions for our economy. And they raise questions of fundamental fairness to the heart of this campaign that I want to talk to you about a little bit today. Folks, trickle-down economics failed the middle class. It failed America. And the truth is, Donald Trump embodies that failure. He wants to double down on trickle-down. His failure starts with his $2 trillion tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited the wealthiest and biggest corporations and exploded the federal debt when he was president. Donald Trump added more to the national debt than any president of the United States in a term in all of American history, more to the national debt. Meanwhile, when the pandemic hit, Trump failed the most basic duty any president owes the American people, a duty to care and a duty to respond. Remember when he told us, don't worry, this will all be over by Easter. Remember when he told us, literally, inject bleach. Bless me, Father. Look, there are only two presidents on record in all of American history that left office with fewer jobs than when they entered office. Herbert Hoover, and yes, Donald Herbert Hoover Trump. You know, I've already been delivering real results in a fiscally responsible way, but I know not everyone's feeling it. Just the other day, a defeated-looking guy came up to me and asked if I could help. He was drowning in debt. I said, I'm sorry, Donald, but I can't help you. Nothing I can do. You know, I have to say, if Trump's stock in the Truth Social, his company, drops any lower, he might do better under my tax plan than his. Folks, he's coming for your money, your health care, and your Social Security. And we're not going to let it happen. Can't let it happen. Donald Trump looks at the world differently than you and me. He wakes up in the morning in Mar-a-Lago thinking about himself, how he can help his billionaire friends gain power and control and force their extreme agenda on the rest of us. Listen to what he says. He says, quote, I'll be dictator on day one. Quote, I am your retribution. He promises, quote, a bloodbath if he loses. This guy denies January 6th. Listen to what he says, because you know he means it. I wake every morning thinking about how to make life better like you do for working and middle-class families here in Scranton and all across the country, where the power and the freedom rest with you and we, the people. Maybe that's why millions of everyday folks are empowering our campaign. So far, 1.6 million people have contributed to our campaign, with 550,000 brand new this time around. And they're new contributors. But guess what? 97% of these contributions were under $200. It matters. You matter.
President Biden's visit to his hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania, was just one stop he made in the Keystone State this week. In Philadelphia on Thursday, he was joined by members of the Kennedy family, including Carrie Kennedy, the sister of independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's running against President Biden. Next, some of her endorsement of President Biden's campaign.
We want to make crystal clear our feeling that the best way forward for America is to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to 4 more years. 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 President Biden has been a champion for all the rights and freedoms that my father and uncles stood for. That's why nearly every single grandchild of Joe and Rose Kennedy supports Joe Biden. That's right. That's right. The Kennedy family endorses Joe Biden for president. When Daddy announced his bid for the presidency in 1968, he talked about the perilous course our country would take under the wrong leadership. And he said, I feel obliged to do all that I can. I cannot stand aside. We are here because we feel obliged to do all that we can. We cannot stand aside. In this election, no American can stand aside. We must vote. In 2024, there are only 2 candidates with any chance of winning the presidency. We know them well. 4 years ago, our country was crippled by COVID, chaos, and the effects of unprincipled leadership. As Donald Trump proudly brags about overturning Roe v. Wade, rolling back the clock 50 years to when women couldn't make our own health care decisions, President Biden is fighting to get our freedoms back. Thank you, Joe Biden.
Meanwhile, the independent candidate himself has continued his quest to gain ballot access across the country. This week, he gained access in Michigan, and The Atlantic magazine reported Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s campaign has proven particularly adept at organizing enough people to sign petitions to get on state presidential ballots. Next, local coverage from WOI-TV in Iowa about a recent signature drive the candidate himself joined in the state capitol.
Today in Des Moines, independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. held a special assembly with the goal of making it onto our state's ballot. In Iowa, a candidate can achieve ballot access by having 500 eligible voters attend an assembly and sign a form attesting they were president. Over 600 people across 35 Iowa counties showed up to see RFK Jr. at the Bel Air Ballroom today, completing the ballot requirements. RFK Jr. weighed in on what he thinks makes him stand out from the crowds.
People want a candidate that they believe in, that they think is going to change some of the things that are, some of the downward trends of our country. And I don't think either of those candidates offers that.
During a speech at the event, RFK Jr. told voters he didn't want them to feel ripped off or tricked and that their vote was going to the person they wanted to vote for.
Nebraska is one of 2 states in the country that apportions its presidential electors based on congressional district. And here to talk to us about recent efforts to try and change that in Nebraska is Fred Knapp, a reporter and producer with Nebraska Public Media News. First, what's the status of the legislation that was proposed and what is it?
Well, the legislation that was proposed would revert to the winner-take-all system that's used in 48 other states. The status of it is it's nowhere. It's there's 1 day left in the session. They have big decisions left on taxes and schools, and so it's not even out of committee. So the chances that anything will happen with it this session are virtually nil.
And who are the forces behind the efforts to change Nebraska to a winner-takes-all system?
Well, it's a perpetual proposal by Republicans in the officially nonpartisan legislature ever since this system was adopted in the early 1990s. So it's come up multiple times to attempts to repeal it. This year, it seems to have gotten, it was languishing in committee, but it seems to have gotten a boost by conservative activist Charlie Kirk making a deal of it, and Donald Trump endorsing the proposal to change it back to winner take all. But all that happened so late in the legislative session when people had other fish to fry, so it didn't go anywhere.
Now, we're really focused on, I know, the 2nd congressional district around Omaha. How many times has this district even split off from the statewide vote?
Twice. It happened in 2008. They gave a vote to Barack Obama. And in 2020, they gave a vote to Joe Biden. Trump carried Nebraska as a whole by 19 percentage points in 2020, but Biden carried the Omaha area district by 7 percentage points. So he got one of Nebraska's 5 electoral votes.
And is there any signs that this will be the same situation in the 2024 election?
Well, it could be. I mean, it'll depend probably on a lot of other local factors. There's a close congressional race there. There's abortion measures on the ballot. So it all depends on turnout and voter sentiment.
So for those of us not familiar with Nebraska's political landscape, what is it about this 2nd congressional district that makes it a more purple district than the rest of the state?
Well, it's by far the most urbanized district in the state. It contains Omaha and a few of its suburbs, whereas the rest of the state is largely agricultural. The 1st district, which includes Lincoln, which the city itself tends to vote Democratic, but it's included in a congressional district that is overwhelmingly Republican. So its electoral vote has never switched. And then the 3rd district, which is huge, most of the state is very solidly Republican.
Was the governor involved in the efforts for winner takes all?
Well, that's interesting. He came out with a statement that said, "Sure, I support winner take all, and I'll be happy to call a special session to change that system once there are sufficient votes to do that." Nebraska has the smallest legislature in the country. It's one house, 49 members, and it takes 2/3 of them, or 33, to overcome a filibuster. And while it's officially nonpartisan, you can count which party people are registered to. There are 33 registered Republicans, but they don't all support changing from winner take all. And the latest convert, a former pro-life Democrat who just became Republican, said he's still opposed to winner take all. So they don't have the 33 yet. The governor also had an interesting comment. In addition to saying, "I'll call it when there are enough votes," he said he was not into goober politics. And I said, "What's goober politics?" And he said it was making decisions solely for political reasons. And he said that nobody on the campaign trail, and he was just elected in 2022, nobody had ever asked, or in his meetings around the state, nobody had ever asked him about this issue.
Fred Knapp, reporter and producer with Nebraska Public Media News. Thanks so much for your time and expertise.
Thank you.
A reminder, this program and all of C-SPAN's campaign 2024 coverage can be found online at cspan.org/campaign.